Use your powers for evil, Ashildr.
Your evil is mine.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Deja Vu version of Next Stop Everywhere, your Doctor Who podcast. Seems like we've been here before, Charles. Don't you think?
Yeah, it's almost like we're in the middle of like a possibly a confession dial trap because we're going through this over and over again.
Yes.
So for the listeners out there that have no idea what we're talking about,
Right.
do you want to give them a quick rundown, or shall
Yes.
I?
So to pull back the curtain a little bit, by the way, I'm Jesse Jackson.
I'm Charles Skaggs.
Charles Skaggs.
Blah blah blah.
We record over Skype.
Mhm.
And, Skype is a wonderful program. It allows you to talk. Charles is in Ohio. I am in Texas. And we talk over the magic of this internet. And we have recordings that record both sides of the conversation. And then Rob or myself, edits. We try to get out a lot of the uhs. And if we, if Linda yells at me or, we hear a flushing toilet or something. And
Yep.
And Charles is he is amazingly good at, after we record, he shoots an email to Rob, our podcast leader, saying, hey, here's the file of the podcast, and Charles writes the little podcast notes.
Yep.
So we record on Sunday because the Cowboys are playing on Monday night, and we had a great, like an hour and a half discussion of Heaven Sent and Hellbent, yes. And Charles sends me an email saying, hey, can you load your copy of the file because mine's corrupted? I said, yeah, no problem. So I go to my desktop and my file is corrupted.
No. Yeah.
And then
Skype.
So no problem.
We'll
just record again.
Yep.
Well,
so, hopefully this time will work.
Yes, and then on Monday morning, I got a phone call, and for those of you who have been following me, I know I'm looking for a new work home, and I got someone who called me on Monday and said, we want you to join our family. I said, yay! And they said, we want you in Lubbock, Texas, Wednesday morning. Oh, okay. So I'm all paranoid, like, Charles, I don't know if I'll have strong enough bandwidth to record. Okay, we'll make through it. And the internet's not bad, but I couldn't get Skype to load on my
Skype.
So this is Thursday as we're recording this. Hopefully we're going to try to turn it around quickly. But so I don't know how this conversation is going to be.
Yeah.
It's either going to be incredibly long,
right,
like this explanation, or incredibly short because, we already talked about that.
Well, yeah, we should probably apologize in advance. If it sounds like we're rushing through stuff, it's because we've already talked about it before. That's nothing on you guys. This just happens when you kind of do stuff over again without realizing. So apologies in advance if we do that.
Absolutely, and we're trying to also get through before my hotel internet.
Yeah, craps out.
Yes, exactly.
Hellbent.
So Hellbent. Quick thoughts. I think it was a great episode, and I will go back and use the asterisk. I hung it a lantern. I put it on, in business speak, I put it over on the parking lot that if we got a good episode this week, then I may go back and revamp my critique and my score of the previous, Doctor episode where he was, locked in the maze. The quick answer is I'm very happy. And I think that this trilogy of those last 3 episodes were really good.
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm glad you're revising your rating because I think the previous episode, Heaven Sent, totally deserves a little bit of a higher, or at least a little bit more love from you. So I'm glad to see that happening. At least, this is my opinion, of course. But as far as Hellbent goes, I enjoyed this as well. I don't think I enjoyed it quite as much as Heaven Sent, but I thought it was a decent Series 9 finale, and a much better exit for Jenna Coleman as Clara Oswald than shoot, now I'm blanking on the episode.
Raven, the Raven.
Yes,
episode.
face the Raven. Yes, thank you.
So I promised not to do this too much, but what am I kidding about? That's a false promise. We're going to talk about that. We've already recorded this way too many times, and they're going to be like, "We get it, shut it up." But
yeah,
we now know that I liked this episode a little more than you did.
Yes.
And
spoilers.
Yes, spoilers. It was just a really good episode. So,
but not by much. Not by much, though.
Yeah, no, not by much. And we both were really pleased. So I did make a few notes to kind of share once again behind the curtains. Charles and I watched the episodes separate. We both take a lot of notes, and sometimes, if I have time, I put together questions I want to ask Charles because I tend to lead the podcast right now. During this break, he's going to take lead on some podcasts, and then we'll switch back and forth. But I don't always have time, and so this time I did have time, and Charles had plenty of time to think about the questions. So my first question is, they did not give an answer to how Gallifrey became unstuck.
Yes.
They just talked about, it's at the end of time, and they don't really talk about, whether that's where they've always been or not. Is that a cheat, or do you think it's clever?
Well, I still think that it wasn't a cheat, because they did explain in the Day of the Doctor that Gallifrey was out there somewhere after being released from the painting, the Time Lord painting. So therefore, it had to be somewhere. The Doctor, of course, didn't know where it was. Missy acted like she knew where it was, but she, of course, it's Missy, so of course she lied, much to the Doctor's chagrin, as he pounded on the TARDIS console in frustration, if you recall. And it just ended up Gallifrey, it turns out, was at the end of time, or at least near the end of time, just waiting there. So that's where they've been waiting all this time. The only question is, the whole business with the confession dial, and how that, we don't know. Is it just because the Doctor was in there for so long? 4.5 billion years. It doesn't seem like it would be much. The end of the time would be much farther down the road. So the question is, how did he really get to the end of time without a TARDIS?
So, Charles, I am psychic,
and
you guys can't see, but I'm doing the,
Johnny
Carson bit.
Oh,
yes,
Karnak.
Karnak.
A blonde?
Oh
no,
yes,
that's good.
Yeah,
go ahead.
If I remember correct, there was someone that had an issue with the statement that the Doctor was lived 4.5 billion years.
Yes, I do have an issue with that, because
please share.
My issue with that is there's no way, as far as the Doctor is concerned, he lived 4.5 billion years, because in Heaven Sent, he just died. Like he appeared in the transporter device, emerged, went through that whole rigmarole of like digging things out and facing the veil, and then ultimately dying and being turned to ash as the cycle started over again, as the Doctor's death powered the transporter and created like this causal loop where he's recreated in the transporter to go through all this again, using the pattern that's in the transporter buffer, to use the Star Trek analogy. Terminology. So really, it's kind of a Groundhog Day where he's gone through the exact same day, 4.5 billion years of time wise, but it's still just one day or whatever it is toward him. It's just one day over and over and over again. He's not learning anything. He just goes through those motions, and the only thing that changes is that as Bantium wall that gets chipped away bit by bit.
Yeah, and we've already gone, and I'm not gonna push that again. The whole, it's very convenient.
Yes.
That this is done, but exactly. I mean, it isn't like Matt Smith, lived that forever on Christmas.
Right.
So absolutely, I totally agree with you.
Now,
thank you.
His doctor did age, though.
Yes, he did.
On Christmas. So,
right.
That's why he had gray hair and whatnot. And then
right.
Until the regeneration energy made him younger again.
Yes, and we get a reference to that this time.
Yes, we do.
It said, how many did we give you?
Yes.
Which is my...
So does that mean that even Rassilon, the Time Lords, don't know how many regenerations the Doctor has?
Ooh, I took that as...
So really, he may not have more than 12 regenerations? I
took that as a rhetorical, how many times do I get to kill you?
Right.
That's what I took it as, not I don't know what's going on. Though I won't, if you think the other, I won't.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just speculating.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm just taking the possibility in.
Did talk to me about this president of Gallifrey. Rassilon. Has the Doctor and he always kind of had a strange relationship, or was, is this something new?
Right. As we talked about in the previous Confession Dial episode that we recorded, that Rassilon was only featured in the 20th anniversary special, The Five Doctors, where he's essentially a disembodied spirit after he had died that shows up in his tomb on Gallifrey inside the Death Zone. So we found out in the End of Time that the Time Lords had resurrected Rassilon somehow through Time Lords science or whatever. That because apparently during the Time War, they were desperate for a strong leader, so they brought Rassilon back to lead them. And he apparently regenerated into Timothy Dalton, and now here he regenerates from James Bond into Maester Lewin from Game of Thrones. So so it's still the same guy though. And he still has that powerful gauntlet on his left hand for that he had in End of Time. But apparently that, by all appearances, during the End of Time, the Master, when he had that showdown with Rassilon, apparently must have killed him during that confrontation, forcing a regeneration.
Yeah, I think so. And we did get a joke this episode about, on Gallifrey, because of regenerations, death isn't as scary as it seems to be.
Right.
Though, hasn't the Who universe been very fast and loose about regenerations, as far as, it, like, David Tennant treated it like he was really dying and didn't want to go.
Yeah, the 10th Doctor farewell tour, which apparently lasted a long time, so it's the longest regeneration ever. As he tours the universe through time and space, visiting old companions, only to finally okay, I guess I visited everybody. Now I'm going to regenerate. I don't want to go.
Yeah. So it appears. So I guess my point is, this doctor
Mm-hmm.
seems to be a little cavalier about killing someone when it actually is going to hurt and it is something traumatic. What do you think?
I think the doctor obviously has been through enough regenerations to know it can be traumatic.
Okay.
When he shoots the general in this episode, and this is the general returning from the Day of the Doctor, by the way.
Okay.
So same actor that he interestingly he's using a gun, which is very unlike the Doctor. But he does ask the general, "How many regenerations do you like? Which regeneration is this?" And he says something like it's his 10th or 11th, and so meaning he's really only got a couple lives left. But the Doctor still goes ahead and shoots him as a way to kind of distract so that he and get away so that he can go do what he plans to do. So it's almost like okay, it does have a purpose, but it's a very temporary purpose, and it does seem a little cavalier, especially when the guy's like only has 2 regenerations left or 2 lives left.
It does seem a little too.
Yeah.
Oh well, hey, it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
Tuesday on Gallifrey. It's like, wait a minute, no.
Unless he figures though, well, maybe he'll get a new set of regenerations too.
Yeah, we've now that we broke the deal.
Mm-hmm.
So we've already talked about this, but I thought it was a good discussion because it's very timey-wimey.
Mm-hmm.
In this episode, the existing Gallifreyans treated the Doctor almost Christ-like is a little hard, but he is definitely a celebrity and someone that they admire.
Right.
And one of the soldiers says this guy is a war hero.
Right.
So
I think war hero is probably the better best description.
Yeah.
Of how they, or at least how the soldiers feel, at least.
Yeah, but I do want you to explain, and then we'll get into this question. Who are all these poor people that are kind of flocking to the Doctor as he eats his soup?
Right.
Because you did a really good explanation last time.
Well,
yes.
I'll try to do it.
By the way, if you're doing a drinking game on how many times Jesse or Charles brings up they're repeating this, I hope you have Uber's phone number.
or at least Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay. So these kind of tribal Gallifreyans, let's just call them that. They are essentially a group that was introduced in a Tom Baker era story called The Invasion of Time. And what they're essentially a group that rebelled against the aristocracy and the technology of the Time Lords. They decided they wanted a simpler existence, so they left the capital, went outside into this area called the Wastelands, which is a desert area. They kind of refer to it here in Hellbent as the Dry Lands. I'm not sure why the name changed, but maybe it's just a region. But so this group had they decided they have this they want to live separately. It's almost like you have to give it like an Earth example, they have the Amish that want to live in like an existence without electricity or what have you. They want to live a simpler life, but as opposed to here all of us with iPads and iPhones and whatnot. So it's that kind of just that a cultural difference, which is nice because it actually it shows that there can be others, but besides the Time Lords on Gallifrey.
Yeah, and I was really glad you explained that to me because when I rewatched the episode, that added a little bit of extra level to me. So okay,
right.
We've all watched The Day of the Doctor,
mm-hmm.
or if you haven't, shame on you.
Yeah,
and we've watched the little prequel to that where Paul McGann turns into John Hurt.
The Night of the Doctor.
Yes. And so the Doctor of War, as they call it on this, or the War Doctor,
Right.
fought.
Yes.
And so my question to you is, did the Day of the Doctor rewrite time that made him a war hero, or in your opinion, has he always been a war hero and it's just the ultimate ending is what ended up getting changed, where before the 10th and 11th Doctor were with the War Doctor, he truly did destroy Gallifrey.
Right.
But when they rewrote this, they
Mhm.
were able to, throw it in that pocket universe and not kill it.
Right. But as far as the War Doctor was concerned, if you recall in the Day of the Doctor, he wasn't going to remember the events that Gallifrey was saved when he returned to his timeline. Because otherwise it would change too much of the 9th and 10th Doctor with that guilt. It doesn't. So basically, what happens is that the Gallifrey is saved, but as far as the War Doctor doesn't remember it.
No one does.
No one does. He becomes the 9th Doctor, bitter still over the Time War.
Yes.
And what he feels is his responsibility, even though the 9th Doctor doesn't know that Gallifrey was saved. And same with the 10th Doctor. And
I heard he moved to Texas and was taking care of his wife that's in a wheelchair. Thank you, Charles. That's just for you.
No problem.
Yes.
But that he and with it's not until the 11th Doctor that he figures this out. So really, in order to keep
the caretaker tells him,
to keep the Doctor's own timeline consistent, the War Doctor had to forget that Gallifrey was saved.
So here's a curveball for you.
Mm-hmm.
Did they change time in the Day of the Doctor, or is that always the way it was? Is this a bootstrap paradox?
That's a good question.
And because I'm going to argue that's what it always was. That when they went back, the chicken or the egg, bootstrap.
Right.
Who put the wet clothes near the fire, to talk about our previous episode. So what's your opinion?
It all depends on when the War Doctor was taken out of time. If the War Doctor, because he regenerates right afterward, so either he, and this is where it gets timey-wimey, of course. If he pushed the button, Gallifrey was destroyed, and then the War Doctor continued to exist, and then gets, meets up with the 10th and 11th Doctors, and then goes back and saves Gallifrey. But he has that moment where he can go back and change stuff. So I'm thinking though that there was a timeline originally that Gallifrey was destroyed, and then it was changed with the War Doctor and everybody making the decision to not push that button on the moment, if that makes sense. So
it does.
So I think that So my theory is that it originally existed and this is now an alternate timeline.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
But I could see where you're coming from, though. If this already existed, like originally the War Doctor thought he destroyed Gallifrey, and only to find out, no, guess what? I didn't do that after all.
Yeah, and I think that was very slick how they worked that.
Yeah.
That because of wiping the memory, you don't have to retcon anything.
Yeah.
Okay.
But didn't the War Doctor say something that, I can do it right this time? I didn't have to push that button. So I don't know.
I think, and then they mention, none of us will remember this.
Right.
And
so maybe the alternate timeline kind of collapsed on itself, so that the timeline where Gallifrey was destroyed never happened.
Yeah. Okay. I saw a Dalek, a Cyberman, and a tore up Weeping Angel.
Yeah.
In the
Weeping
cellar, which is the Matrix database.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
In the cloisters.
Did I miss anything?
No, I thought I saw axons, but I didn't find any actual evidence of that. So it might have been something else I saw. But as far as we know, those are the only 3. But how creepy were the Weeping Angels in just that little tiny segment?
They were very creepy, and it was also it almost made you and I both feel sorry for the Dalek.
Yes.
Exterminate me.
Yes.
Exterminate me. Yeah, it was very, very
Yes.
creepy and sad.
Yeah, it's that the Dalek, who's normally wanting to exterminate everybody else, is just like, oh, I'm stuck here in this like web, this trap, and I
So
can't get out like a flying amber. And then all of a
yeah.
sudden, like he's like, okay, please, get me out of this hell, because this is essentially hell for the Dalek.
So on my other podcast, Cheap Plugs at Lusting Bruce,
Hmm.
last week
Take a drink.
I interviewed a guy named Paul that has a wonderful memory for dates and years, and he, like, if I mentioned a Bruce concert, he could almost,
Hmm.
he named the date and where it's at. It just really, and his friends call him Paulopedia.
Yes.
And I bragged about you in that
Oh,
discussion,
I'm far from that.
saying that Charlesopedia is amazing. How, let's do double drink. Ken and I talk all the time that how quickly you bring things up and you remember.
Well,
So
Doctor Who is my religion. What can I
yes,
say?
it is. So this is, you called it the cloister area,
Yeah.
and we hear the cloister bells.
Right.
So
And we see cloister wraiths, which are
yeah,
new. That's something.
tell me a little bit, because we've heard the cloister bells before, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's in the
Yeah.
TARDIS, where
Okay.
like when it's all going to go down and things are getting pretty hairy. Usually the cloister bells sound out within the TARDIS, but
And
so here we kind of get an idea of where that was from. Now
and
now
can you?
oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you, can you explain it to me like, I'm a young 8-year-old Doctor Who fan, kind of what is this cloister area and what are the cloister bells?
Right.
And if you can't, we'll cut this question out.
Okay. Well, um, kind of give you a background. Okay. There was an episode called Legopolis, which was Tom Baker's last episode, and that introduced the sound of the. It actually introduced a cloister room, which had kind of like ivy and stuff, and it looked like almost like a sad little garden almost feel within the TARDIS. If you could picture like the TARDIS interior of ye olden days with ivy kind of growing over it and a little with columns and stuff inside. That was the cloister.
Sounds
Yeah, sounds a little familiar,
sounds
doesn't?
lovely.
Yeah. Well, essentially, apparently, whatever, this is the area that I'm guessing broadcast the cloister bell sound throughout the TARDIS as the warning that something bad is going to happen. So the cloister bell this is when it was introduced into Doctor Who. We'd never seen it in the TARDIS until that moment, and it's kind of been carried on since, especially a lot recently. Especially in this season, there's a lot of cloister bells going off in this season. So it only stands to reason that Gallifrey would have like a much more grander scale of that cloister room within their own Capitol building, and that sounds out to everyone inside the Citadel that that something's wrong.
So, Charles, do you think the High Council or Rassilon was being a little paranoid about this hybrid thing? I mean, to put the Doctor in that trap for so long,
Right.
all to try to get information. Do you feel they were a little paranoid?
Yeah, well, especially Rassilon was. I'm guessing, I mean, it feels like Rassilon was the one who orchestrated this,
Mm-hmm.
and it was his fear of the hybrid. Now, we don't know for sure that there isn't a hybrid, that, whatever reason the Doctor thought he was the hybrid, and it's left kind of vague. So maybe at some future point we will see an actual hybrid that becomes a threat. But as far as Rassilon's concerned, yeah, he thought it was the Doctor, or that the Doctor knew what the hybrid was. So he tried to get the Doctor to confess. And he said, well, all he had to do was, confess, and then he would have been released from the dial. He didn't have to go through billions of years. but so which doesn't really make much
Or
sense if you're going to restart him over and over again. He's not going to
Yes.
if he doesn't say it once, you would think he wouldn't say it each of those billions and billions of times.
Right.
So it seemed kind of like dubious reasoning as far as Rassilon goes. Although maybe Rassilon's nuts too, just like the Master and the Doctor.
Absolutely. So is there a earlier episode? And if there is, can we put it on our rewatch about the president's wife and a lost moon?
Yeah. Well, actually, no. I mean, there was no previous episode. And
darn it.
Yes, there was no previous episode. It would have been nice. So maybe we'll get it someday, but I wouldn't put money.
Not even a Big Finish version?
Yeah, no. Maybe there will be. There could be a Big Finish. Big Finish could do it, or a comic book. Maybe a Titan comic would do it. But yeah, that, and the Doctor actually references this. That he sets the record straight when he gets reunited with Clara. And this is after his little 4.5 billion year stay in the confession dial. He says that something called the Shebogians, unless that's just like a Scottish term, like for a-holes, lied. And apparently it was the president's daughter, not his wife. And according to him, he didn't steal the moon, he lost it. So take that for what you will.
Do you have a theory who the president's daughter might be?
Yeah, I think that if this was like a secret romance, maybe if he stole the president's daughter, then maybe he was romancing her. So maybe that was the Doctor's first wife.
So Susan's
grandmother. Susan's grandmother, yeah. So,
grandmother, yes.
Yeah,
okay.
So or it could have just been somebody the Doctor had a fling with. We don't know.
Yes.
But it would be nice.
Well,
it'd be nice to actually because we don't know anything about the Doctor's first wife.
Right.
So it would be nice to hey, we actually got a little bit of that story.
It is he is rubbish at weddings though. So
but he has,
especially my own.
But he's had 4 of them, so you think he'd have it down by now.
Absolutely. So one more question,
okay.
And then I want to talk just some highlights of the episode that we both I know that we loved. Clara doesn't want to give up her memories.
Right.
She says that tomorrow is promised to no one, Doctor, but I insist upon my past. Do you first off agree with that decision? And do you think that if she had, one of the reasons she didn't want to do this would mean forgetting Danny?
Yeah, I think that, nobody wants to forget their memories.
Right.
Outright. But I'm sure she doesn't want to forget her memories of Danny. And it seems rather extreme for the Doctor to want her to do this. I mean, they kind of went through that with Donna Noble, where he forced Donna to forget so that all that Dr. Donna Time Lord energy wouldn't fry her brain.
Yes.
In Journey's End, which was so tragic. Right. So after going through that, you would think he wouldn't force anyone else to go through that as well.
Yes.
But the Doctor is, all about the end result.
Yes.
So he was willing to do that. But when Clara does tell him that she, reversed the polarity or whatever, so that it would go back on him, the device, he still goes ahead and is like, well, okay, I guess we'll find out if you get it or I get it. So in that sense, he's kind of taking his own responsibility. It's
absolutely.
Okay, if you go through with this, I will go through with this, and then we'll see where we end up.
Yes. And
which, of course, it takes the Doctor's memories.
So I love the beginning of the episode. The sign going to Jackson, the red truck. I know it was light, but I kept thinking of the Eagles, the Dark Desert Highway.
See, I was thinking of Jackson by Johnny Cash and June Carter Cash.
Yes, absolutely.
Because that would be a perfect song for that scene.
That would be. I'm just throwing it out there. No one asked me my opinion, but I just want to get on the record.
It's a podcast. A podcast. You need to have opinions on a podcast.
I love that the 12th Doctor plays the guitar.
Yes, I do
I
too.
it just seems so him.
Natural for his Doctor.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
every doctor has something that kind of defines them. And I think the guitar does define Capaldi's Doctor as like an aging rocker. So, or like an aging, like a magician-y punk guitarist kind of thing, a little hybrid of that, to use the hybrid term. But yeah, I think it suits his Doctor perfectly.
Yeah, it does. I mean,
As a rebel
really,
too, because he's a rebel
yes.
against Gallifrey and
Yeah.
all the other like would-be conquerors of the universe. He's the he's the kind of the ultimate anti-authority figure.
Yeah, like
Nothing says that better than rock and roll.
Yeah, Roger Daltrey or Peter Gabriel or
U2 or the Police.
Yeah, U2. Yeah, well, I'm just I'm thinking especially in that '60s generation.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, a little bit older.
Oh, you mean
if we had not lost John Lennon, I mean, that kind of age,
the Beatles,
that kind of exactly.
The Beatles, the Doors, the Kinks,
yeah. So I just love that the Doctor is this aging rocker, and we've had bow ties, we've had scarves, we've had long brown coats, and I just love a guitar.
I do too.
Yeah. So we were just talking about this, and my Chris Farley impersonation is, wasn't the time the Doctor faced the High Council great? That whole sequence of how they kept going back and forth to him and how little he talked originally.
Right. You mean when the soldiers that were supposed to, bring the Doctor in?
Yeah, they come with a tank.
And then Rassilon's there. But
yeah, we draw a line in the sand.
Yeah, the Doctor draws a line in the sand.
Yeah. Then they get a general with the soldiers. He ignores them.
Right.
Then the High Council shows up, I assume. The guys in the big helmet.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And really, have they not looked in a mirror and said, this is pretty stupid looking?
Well, it's all relative. Fashion's relative.
Yeah.
I mean,
the president
it's cool for them.
Shows up by himself.
Right.
Right. And it tries to extend his hand.
Yeah.
And then, nothing. And then he shows up with a firing squad, the president.
Yeah.
And they go to shoot him and they fire, but they shoot around him, right?
Right. And it was basically saying, okay, we're not going to kill the Doctor for you. It quickly turns into a coup.
Yes, it does.
Rassilon gets carted away.
Yeah,
we're not sure where he goes.
No.
So he could come back presumably at some point, but I don't know if they're carting him off to stick him in a confession dial somewhere.
And it was a great moment when the Doctor says, "Get off my planet."
Yep.
And then the general looks at Rassilon and says, "Get off his planet."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the coup moment right there, really.
It is.
And the soldiers respected the Doctor for what he did in the Time War.
Yes.
As the War Doctor. So
right.
He earned their respect, which is more than apparently Rassilon did.
Absolutely. Did
probably because the soldiers, surprise, are the ones who are dying.
Yes.
And the Doctor was on the battlefield while Rassilon and the High Council were off nice and cozy.
Yes.
Having tea or something somewhere.
Yeah. We get I really like at the end of everything, you must expect the company of immortals.
Yep.
We get a call back later. So the Clara plan.
Yeah.
This is in the scope of things as bad as a John Crichton and
from Farscape.
Yeah, and a Kate Beckett from Castle plan. Both horrible plans. Right? He's just going to keep flying around till she gets her heartbeat back, using the TARDIS as the pallet. Clear.
Well, it's the Doctor is desperate by this point. He's just watched Clara die, as far as he's concerned, until Clara gets pulled out that moment in time, and then so he's trying to come up with well, okay, if I get away from the Time Lords and I go to the, like the far end of the universe in time and space, the end of time, maybe it'll be far enough to get away from there, so her heart will restart. He's
Yeah.
grasping at straws. He's not really thinking clearly. He's being, for a doctor that professes to not care, that Claire is the one who, she cares, so I don't have to. He obviously cares. He could be, grumpy old doctor all he wants, but he obviously cares for Clara. And it's that because he cares so much, it's clouding his judgment. And so it's at that point where he kind of has to stop. Like he kind of realizes that he and Clara are just not good for each other, and it's
Yeah,
forcing him to be desperate. So he kind of slams on the brakes and is like, okay, that's it. One of us has to leave.
and we're going to talk about that in a little bit, but why do you think, and this is a curveball,
Yeah.
why do you think that this doctor was so moved by the loss of a companion that he's breaking the rules versus your favorite doctor did not break the rules for
Adric.
Adric?
Well, apart from the obvious difference that this was a episode written in 2015 versus 1982, you mean?
Now, Charles, that's the rules. The
Well,
rules are you
just-
have to use the logic of the show.
just like the Doctor, I don't follow the rules. I make up my
You're
own
James T. Kirk. You don't believe in the no-win scenario.
or John Crichton or Han Solo or you name it. But
Here's my theory.
This is the Doctor Who podcast. I will choose the Doctor.
Yeah, my theory is that because it's been so long since he lost the companion to death, but he did lose Rory and Amy in a semi-tragic way.
Yeah, but
and
just travel back in time.
I understand, but I'm just saying he could never see them again. And
unless
because
let's say he hooked up in New Jersey.
Yeah. And
it's not that tragic.
Clara had gotten so close.
Right.
That, and he's feeling all frisky. He's got a new set of regenerations.
Yep.
And he's got a little bit of the Time Lord Victorious that the 10th Doctor had. So I think he's basically Janice from accounting.
Who doesn't give an F. Yeah.
Yes. So he's just going, I think because with the 5th Doctor, the other two companions were asking him to make the change.
Right.
And it was easier for him to say,
I'm setting an example. Yeah.
Setting an example. But this one, there is no command,
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you, right?
Well, at that point in his life, remember, this was only his 5th incarnation.
Right.
Maybe as far as he knew, he couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Until he's gone through, he hadn't gone through the Time War yet, which obviously affected him greatly. And all those experiences of, here it is, let's see, 8 other lives since then, because you have to count the War Doctor, so that makes 13.
Yeah.
Okay. So 8 lives on top of that. So it's gone through all these experiences and he's changed. He's not the same person he was. So, he's not going to react the same. He's going to push the envelope. And like you said, he has a little bit of Time Lord Victorious. So that time as the 10th Doctor showed him that maybe he can push those boundaries that he thought maybe originally he couldn't. So how's that for explanation?
No, I like it a lot. Thank you. That's
ta-da!
That's what I expected. Yay!
Pulled it right from my butt. Woo! How's that for improvising?
I am such a fan of Ashildr and the Doctor's conversation at the end of the universe, at the restaurant at the end of the universe, except she just has a little sitting area.
How great would have been now you mentioned it, how great would it have been if Ashildr said, well, I have this restaurant now.
Yeah.
At the end of the universe, that would have been priceless. Yeah. It's called Milliways.
Yeah, I loved that, discussion. In fact, that made it pull up a half a score from me. So, but if I remember correct, you may not have been a big a fan of that as I am.
No, I thought it was a
You
little.
changed your mind after a few days?
No, I thought it was.
Okay.
Still think it's a little weird that she's just been kind of sitting around waiting for the doctor, apparently, for billions of years. Especially when she could have been killed. I mean, she wasn't indestructible that we know of, and yet, she's still perfectly whole and hearty. Um, after, she hasn't lost any limbs, and so she's just kind of like, all she does now is she's got longer hair and she looks a little bit more like adult than Maisie Williams traditionally looked, at least in the woman who lived and the girl who died.
Yeah, and I had said we both had thought that in the girl who died, right?
Right.
When she's the Viking, that was not a big stretch of a role. But I think she's really brought it in this 4-episode kind of arc that she had,
Right.
and has been, I think, a great character added to the Who mythos.
Yeah, and well, that's true. And it's not like we couldn't see her again,
Right.
because if she lived all these years, there's
hmm
plenty of places where she could encounter the doctor. So
And
this. Go ahead. Go
put
ahead.
me down for, yes, I want one heartbeat away from death, Clara,
Right.
to with me
Yeah.
to go grab Captain Jack, and the three of them go on an adventure in a TV movie.
No,
I'm just saying.
I want Captain Jack and River's song to go in an
Okay,
adventure.
yes,
Don't
that
you
would be
don't you
good.
think that would be much better?
Oh, I think they both would be great. So that's good.
Yeah, after
hmm
spending time in Star City,
Yes,
Captain Jack and River's song
yes.
have their adventure.
Do did you like the ending? And I know that's a loaded
Yeah.
question
Are you talking
um,
the diner scene, or are you talking where the kind of feel good happy ending where Clara, the diner turns into is revealed to be a TARDIS, and then
yeah,
Clara and the Ashildr go off and go all Thelma and Louise and go off and have adventures.
yes. So let's talk about both. Let's
Okay.
first off, how cool is it that there is a fatal flaw in the design of TARDISes, that they get their chameleon circuits get stuck, and I think it's just under a yellow sun,
Yeah.
it's their kryptonite.
Maybe it's in the way the doctor steals them from the that little
Yes.
chamber below the cloister room. Is
Yes.
that that maybe in the process of stealing them, he breaks the chameleon circuit or something? I don't know.
Maybe so. By the way,
But it has to work long enough to change into something from
yes,
that initial column.
yes. And
know,
by the way,
The default setting. Yeah.
I was so happy
Mhm.
because, as you and I have talked about before on the podcast, and not just in this recording, I once, after The Doctor's Wife, I called you and said, "Hey, what does a TARDIS look like if it isn't, if right off the factory?" And you're like, "I'm not really sure. I don't know if we've seen." And then, with the impossible.
Well, you had the name of the doctor because it's
Yes.
shown in the name of the doctor.
Yeah, and also when yeah, is that where we first see Clara telling him, no, steal this one?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
That moment. And that's why they
Okay.
kind of recreated that design for
Yeah.
Hellbent.
hmm
That kind of, to make that pre-chameleon circuit TARDIS look the same.
So I want to get your opinion on the Doctor has lost his memory,
Right.
acts like he's dying, and for half a second, I thought that we were going to have one of the greatest
Surprises.
reveals in modern TV history, that it has been a lie. Capaldi was not coming back for the next season,
Mhm.
and they were going to regenerate. And this has been a huge, surprise to the fans. Kind of like we did not know, we were surprised that Jenna Coleman showed up in Asylum of the Daleks.
Right.
You know, that had not leaked.
That's a good comparison.
Yeah, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, they're really,
Clara.
really.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And so,
yeah, it was a little touch and go there. And the scene we're talking about is right after the Doctor loses his memory and he starts to fall back to the floor, and we're kind of like, he kind of looked like he was, like, as you said, he looked like he was dying. And we thought in that moment, it just kind of that split second, like, he's not going to regenerate, is he?
Yeah.
And that little like, but you know, they haven't announced a new Doctor. That can't happen. And you know, like, so. But as you said, how great would it have been if they were able to keep something like that secret?
Yeah.
It would just been like surprise regeneration and freak everybody out. But
yeah,
that was
it's okay. So the Doctor has forgotten.
Yeah.
And but there's a hole in his mind. Babylon 5 reference.
Nice. Very nice.
And he has pieced together what happened.
Right.
Because, you know, he is too smart and he did not take the recording. I had my memory wiped of my own, you know, agreement. So, but he doesn't know what she looks like. And I thought that was a poignant moment when he says, if I know anything, I would recognize when I see her. And when he sees the picture on the TARDIS, do you think he recognizes that was the waitress?
I think so.
Okay,
I mean, he does. Like he does remember the events of like his adventures with Clara, at least some of them.
Right.
So he knows that he traveled with a companion called Clara. He just doesn't remember what she looked like.
Right.
So if he kind of, like you said, pieces it together.
Okay.
And especially once, you know, the diner disappears.
Right.
You know, and, you know, dematerializes and, you know, leaves him alone in the desert by his TARDIS.
Right.
I'm sure he's like, and once he sees Clara's image on the exterior of his TARDIS that was painted by Rigsy.
Yes.
I would think he would piece it together by that point.
Okay. So let's talk about that. Did you like that ending?
That
you know, this kind of the Doctor has forgotten,
yes,
but kind of remembered and moved on.
Yeah, I think so.
Would you have liked the episode better if they had not given us the happy-go-lucky, you know, Thelma and Louise ending?
It seems a little convenient that
Clara
gets her own TARDIS.
Yeah.
And, you know, that Ashildr, who we still don't know that much about.
Right.
Who, you know, like could potentially become a enemy of the Doctor.
And she has been wanting to go in space.
Right. And it's kind of bitter that, yeah, she was bitter, like you said, that the Doctor didn't take her in time and space.
Yeah.
So, although, you know, it's like, well, guess what? Ashildr gets to go into time and space now. So, it seems a little too wrapped up in a neat little bow in that regard, a little too, I don't know, fan servicey, but you know, it works as an ending. So
I liked it a lot. I love the idea that because they have a time machine that seems to work,
right,
that they can go forever having adventures,
right,
as long as sometime 4 billion years from the future they show up back to Gallifrey and they put Clara back to die on the Raven. And then the circle is complete.
Yes.
But there's no hurry in that.
Right. But how do you going to make sure that Clara doesn't get killed or, you know, like disintegrated by Daleks or something in the meantime?
Mm-hmm.
There's no, and then what happens if, you know, like, well, if she's like disintegrated, she can't go back to that moment where she dies and kind of patch the timeline together.
Good point. So, I would think that if she dies doing like something else, if she dies doing something else, that completes the loop. She's dead, and that kind of fixes things.
Yeah, but then that whole business with the Raven doesn't happen, and sets the Doctor off in the confession dial, and the whole thing on ending up on Gallifrey.
Okay.
So that as far as the Doctor's concerned, the Doctor's own timeline, that has to happen.
Okay.
So Clara's kind of playing fast and loose with the Doctor's timeline.
Well, that they're time travelers.
I know.
They have lunch then breakfast because
Yep.
that's how they roll.
Yep.
Okay, fair enough. I think.
And Clara
that's a
doesn't have
good point, and-
regenerations.
No, she does not. No, she does not. What else did we need to talk about, Charles?
I wanted to talk about something we didn't talk about the first time.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. Ohila and the Sisterhood of Karn being on Gallifrey. We don't really get an explanation about why they're there. Especially since if you watched The Brain of Morbius or like any of the other like appearances by Ohila, like the Night of the Doctor or the prologue episode for Series 9, the Sisterhood of Karn and the Time Lords have kind of been at odds with one another.
Okay.
They don't get along. So it seems odd that Ohila is there on Gallifrey working with the High Council and watching the Doctor go through all his stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering, like, well, okay, when did this happen that the Sisterhood of Karn are like palling around with the Time Lords?
Yeah.
We don't get an explanation for it.
No, we don't. Why she's there and why she's kind of doing a commentary.
Yeah, what was her purpose apart from just like, oh, hey, it's Ohila. She's in this episode. How cool is that?
Yeah, I don't know.
It just seemed a little, yeah.
Yeah, I see that. Okay, very nice.
And so when and also something else I didn't bring up, when the Doctor hears 4 knocks.
Yes.
Before he goes out and meets Ashildr at the end of time.
Mm-hmm.
Did you kind of wonder if Wilf would be on the other side of those 4 knocks?
I did not.
How funny would that have been if, like, I mean, I know it's kind of ridiculous, but
no.
Would have been funny if Bernard Cribbins was there on the other side knocking on the 4 knocks.
My actual, my first thought was, okay, no, it isn't always 4 knocks. It's been 4 knocks once. It's kind of, I have a friend.
Well, it was 4 knocks in, was that Listen? Wasn't there 4 knocks or something? When, maybe I'm remembering it. Never mind. Go ahead.
Okay. No, I mean, maybe there, I'd love for you to correct me, but it just seems like, and the reason why is, I have a friend, a bunch of us play poker about once a month. Okay. And there is a guy that used to say, every time when the timer goes off and the blinds go up, he felt like he was he got the newer, paying that every time. And, finally, like, no, it's not every time, and I started pointing out the 3 times. So I was like, so that's the only thing I thought, but it was very cool. That they did, this did get that throwback. There was actually a lot of throwbacks to this episode, don't you think?
Yes,
to past episodes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fan service, and a lot of nods to the past. Because you were going to get that with Clara leaving. So I mean, there's like one of the coolest moments we didn't. Was when the Doctor goes into the diner at the beginning of the episode, and he's telling the waitress without knowing it's Clara about like there's this song, and I think it's called Clara. Yeah. And then he starts playing Clara's theme.
Yes.
That was the Murray Gold composer Murray Gold created for the show. So that was kind of a nice little in joke.
It was.
And then like he also hears. When he first walked in, he heard Fox's version of "Don't Stop Me Now" that was in Mummy on the Orient Express.
Yes. And
the diner, of course, was the same one that, at least maybe I don't know if it looks the same, at least, as the same one he visited in his 11th, and as the 11th Doctor in 1968 in The Impossible Astronaut with Amy and Rory. So we got that. So there's lots of nods.
Yeah, it was nice. I liked it a lot.
Yep.
Yeah. What else do we need to talk about?
the new sonic screwdriver.
Yay!
Yes, yeah. So all you haters of the sonic shades, just
Mhm.
can take good, take solace in the knowledge that the Doctor now has his sonic screwdriver back, and it's a brand new spiffy version that you can go out and buy and complete your set.
And didn't you recently on our fan page, our Facebook page, please
Yes.
check it out and like it, post kind of some diagrams of it?
Yes, I did. There was
Yay.
they kind of, I think it was Doctor Who, BBC America's Doctor Who account that on Twitter, or that, or on Facebook. So yeah, I kind of shared that because it gave us a really great look at the new 12th Doctor sonic screwdriver. So hope you check it out.
Absolutely, and I'm hoping that it will be available soon.
I'm sure.
But
not
yes,
in time for Christmas.
absolutely.
But not in time for your Christmas invasion. But maybe maybe sometime in 2016.
Yeah. Let's see. What else do we need to talk about, my friend?
Just let's see real quick. Donald Sumpter, the guy who played Rassilon in this new incarnation.
Yes.
He was in a couple of previous Doctor Who stories from the classic era.
Ooh.
Yeah, he appeared as Enrico Casali in The Wheel in Space, which was a second Doctor, Jamie and Zoe episode. That was the episode that introduced Zoe, by the way. And Commander Ridgway in The Sea Devils, which was the third Doctor, John Pertwee era episode that also featured the Master. So
very nice.
Yep.
How about you do us a few quotes?
A few quotes. Okay. I'm gonna choose one where Clara says, "Is this a story or did it really happen?" And the Doctor replies, "Everything ever told really happened. Stories are where memories go when they're forgotten."
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
one of my favorites is "Nothing's sad till it's over, and then everything is."
yes.
And which I think is the pessimistic version, and the optimistic version is "Don't be sad, it happened.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be sad, it's over. Be glad it happened."
Right.
So absolutely, yes.
Any others?
I think we talked about the first thing you notice about the Doctor of War is he's unarmed for many. It's also the last.
Right.
You've got to have Clara's great line.
Right.
About how you guys really are dense, right? So why don't you do that one?
Oh, I don't have that one.
Oh, the Doctor's back on Gallifrey after 4.5 billion years. What do you think he's going to do?
Right.
He's stealing a TARDIS and running away.
Bye.
Yes. Yeah. I love that.
So I've got we're on Gallifrey. Dead is just Time Lord for Man Flu.
Yes. And I love the Ashildr saying it was sad, it was beautiful, and it is over. And also her line about, why we run, because we know summer can't last forever.
Right.
And just the right amount to me of bittersweet melancholy, the ending.
Mm-hmm.
So, really, really, really good.
That's good.
Cool. What else?
Last one I have is from Ohila, who says,
yes.
"I heard the Doctor had come home. One so loves fireworks."
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which sums up his relationship with the Time Lords rather well.
Yes. And my last one is never be cruel, never be cowardly. And if you are, always make amends, which could be my family motto, right?
Yes, exactly.
As I'm a director of customer service.
Rating.
Ranking. What are you going to give it? Rating.
I give this one. I enjoyed this episode a lot. It's not perfect for me, but I enjoyed it quite a bit. I give it 9 out of 10 spiffy new sonic screwdrivers.
Okay, that's right. We did have the same rating. I did 9 flying submarines, and I actually would retroactively go this trilogy of individual episodes tied together. I would give them a 999. They were just a wonderful way to end this season.
Right.
Yeah. I've got a couple friends that are not on board with Capaldi, and they just don't like the style. And I respect their
Fools.
opinion, but yeah, I just don't feel that.
Yeah.
So, Charles,
Yes.
before we get your reverse the polarity,
Mm-hmm.
because we were back on Gallifrey, my friend,
Yep.
so there is so many the options for you.
Right.
But it is Christmas time, isn't it?
It's Christmas time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we have a holiday special coming up.
Yes, we do. The
And
Husbands of River Song.
yes, and there are has been the tradition over past couple of years. Doctor Who's going to the big Cineplex, the big
Yes.
screen.
Yep. I
Charles,
got my tickets right here.
yes. The only reason I don't have the tickets is I don't know whether I need to buy them in Lubbock, Texas, or Dallas, Texas, with the new job.
Right.
But Charles, I'm confused and I need advice. Should I wear to the viewing at the theater?
That's a good question. Why, I would recommend the officially official Next Stop Everywhere t-shirt.
There is such a thing?
There is such a thing, and it is glorious to behold. You can find that t-shirt on this website called TeePublic.
Yes.
And we have links to said t-shirt on our Facebook page, which has been pinned to the top of the page. And
Yes.
also you can find it on various links that posted on Twitter, but that might be a little tougher.
Yeah.
So go to the Facebook page, or you can go to a certain blog of mine by the name of Damn Good Coffee and Hot. And if you go to our posting about this episode,
yes,
you can find the link to those t-shirts right there in the blog post.
Yes, they. I recommend the royal blue.
I do too.
I think it's the one that looks best with a logo, but there are others. There are tank tops, long sleeve t-shirts, baseball tees, kids, crew neck, a hoodie, and a case. And for men of size,
right?
Us normal big guys, they do have big and tall sizes,
right?
Where you can get the shirt, which was really nice to see. And thank you, Tom Zoller, for designing the logo for us. We've loved this for the year that we've been doing this, and we're just thrilled. T-shirts now to share, and they're if you and what's really nice is if you buy the shirt, a few pennies go towards supporting the podcast.
Yeah.
So
click on the links that we have on Facebook and also on Damn Good Coffee, and that'll help support the show.
Yeah, and there actually are there are podcasts for almost all the Southgate media groups.
Including
they have like
the Fandom Zone podcast.
Yes. And
which I'm wearing at this very moment.
Yes. So 80s Reboot Overdrive, Enough Said podcast, and so it's really, really nice to see. So please check it out.
Fandom Zone.
Yes. Set less than Bruce. Hey.
Very nice.
So Charles.
Yes.
Talk to me about your reverse the polarity thought.
Okay. As you know, since we have gone through the confession dial recording, I'm going to go back to 1983 with the 5 Doctors, the 20th anniversary special, which I mentioned earlier in this episode, written by Terrence Dix. The reason I'm going back for this, after his former selves and his companions are taken out of time, the 5th Doctor returns to Gallifrey with his companions Tegan and Turlough. He encounters a group of Cybermen in this area called the Death Zone on Gallifrey while meeting the Master, then meets up later with the High Council and learns that there's a traitor that turns out to be Lord President Barusa. So once again, you have a jerky Lord President. Barusa, it turns out, wants to be President Eternal of Gallifrey. He's looking for immortality. So you got immortality. just like
Right.
Ashildr. So he goes to this the tomb of Rassilon. So Rassilon's in play.
Ooh, okay.
As I mentioned earlier. Located in a tower inside the Death Zone. The Doctor joins forces with his first three selves. Would have been the fourth, but Tom Baker decided not to return for the 20th anniversary special, causing lots of us to be bitter for quite some time until the day of the Doctor. These four Doctors help to join forces. They help to defeat Barusa with Rassilon's help. The High Council appoints the Doctor as the new Lord President, just kind of like what happened in Hellbent.
Yes. Tell me more.
But the Doctor, however, is hesitant to take power. He leaves Chancellor Flavia in charge as acting president until he returns, which, of course, being the Doctor, won't be anytime soon.
Right.
So when Tegan asks him if he's really going to run from his own people in a rackety old TARDIS, the Doctor replies, "Why not? After all, that's how it all started."
Nice.
Thank you.
Nice. Very nice.
So,
Charles, you've already talked about your blog, but how can people reach you?
Of course, at Charles Skaggs on Twitter and at Charles Skaggs on Instagram. Of course, I have my own Facebook account. And then on my Google Plus for all you crazy kids in the Google Plus, and my blog of key things, as I mentioned earlier, Damn Good Coffee and Hot, where you can get those t-shirt links, and also where I talk about Doctor Who, Next Stop Everywhere, and a little bit of comics on TV as well.
Absolutely. I am at Jesse Jackson, DFW. I also am on Facebook. And if you want to see my spiffy new business profile with my new job, go to LinkedIn and do a search for Jesse Jackson in Dallas, Texas. So, Charles.
Yes.
With the new job, it may be tougher for us to kind of do some fill-in episodes, but we definitely are going to talk Christmas special.
Yeah, if nothing else, we'll talk The Husbands of River Song.
Right.
And as we'll see how time goes and how your new job shakes out.
Yes. And you've got writing to do.
I do have writing to do.
So it is good, but
right today I have Christmas gifts to wrap because we're shipping gifts out to my wife's family in Salt Lake. So
very nice.
Yep.
So knock on wood, this episode recorded at least on one side.
Because I don't know if we could do this a third time.
No, you'd be like, yeah, it was a good episode.
Yeah, it was just like us. I know it's a season finale, but we can't do this a third time.
Yeah, we can't do this again. Though I am happy that we recreated some of the magic and created new magic. So there we go.
And this was almost twice as long as the original versions. After we stitched these two parts together.
Yes, it will be. I wonder if we edit out as we've said before, it might drop in length a little bit.
Yeah, maybe.
Yes. So for now.
Yes.
I've already closed my document with my.
That's okay.
So we're just going to say, keep hope alive.
Right.
Thanks for the well wishes. Thanks. If we don't talk to you again, have a wonderful holiday season. And we will be back for sure for the Christmas special.
Yeah, for the Husbands of River Song. So, So keep posted. Check us out on Twitter and Facebook for updates. Maybe once we figure out what our game plan is between now and Christmas.
Yes. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye, everyone.